Hello, my name is Dr. Marybeth Carlberg. I'm a retired family practice physician in Central New York. I'd like to make the case that one of the best things we can do for both our health and the planet's is to eat less meat and dairy, and no less important to talk to everyone we know about it. In this video, we'll explore the data showing how a more plant-focused diet can give us, on average, 10 to 12 more and healthier years. First, let's get the elephant out of the room. Do we need animal products for complete protein and optimal health? Well, what do all these guys have in common? Of course, they're all vegans. I rest my case. But you don't have to take my word. How about that of Dr. David Katz, a prolific Yale-trained, globally recognized physician and leader in nutrition and preventive health? Quote, "Humans do not need to eat meat, not to build muscle, not to get adequate protein, not for any reason at all. A human diet can be optimal and complete without meat." Unquote. These myths that plant proteins are incomplete, that plant proteins aren't as good, that one has to combine proteins at meals, these have all been dismissed by the nutrition community decades ago. This is interesting. Look at our protein requirement in yellow, and then protein in human breast milk in pink, and compare to proteins in various vegetables. This 2013 study of 73,000 participants showed that strict vegetarians ate the same amount of protein as omnivores, and all diets got almost twice the protein requirement. So the question really becomes, are we getting too much protein? According to this Mayo Clinic report in 2022, most people in the U.S. meet or exceed their needs. The body can't store protein, so any extra is turned into fat. And also, since most animal protein travels with saturated fats, we end up increasing blood fats and thus heart disease. However, for your information, these are 3 plants that each have complete protein: soy, chickpeas, and quinoa. So you don't need animal protein. What you do need, however, if you are vegan or vegetarian, is vitamin B12. This is very, very important. I recommend looking for the USP label. USP is a globally recognized, non-governmental, nonprofit organization that sets standards for dietary supplements. Most Nature Made and Kirkland supplements have this voluntary designation. Also, consider supplementing with omega-3s. Most commonly purchased is fish oil. By the way, omega-3s from sources like flax are not as well absorbed as that from fish or algae. But don't kill the krill. Some omega-3 products are from krill, but even low levels of harvesting it from the ocean are affecting penguin populations. Instead, we can get omega-3 directly from algae, which is where fish get it, in a product such as Ovega available on Amazon. So let's look what science is telling us about food and our health. The Global Burden of Disease Study, the largest global analysis of risk for death and disease in history, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, determined the leading cause of death and disability in the United States is the standard American diet, followed by smoking. A suboptimal diet is responsible for more deaths than any other risks globally, including tobacco smoking. The leading dietary risk factors for mortality are diets high in sodium, low in whole grains, low in fruit, low in nuts and seeds, low in vegetables, and low in omega-3 fatty acids. Let's look at a bunch of other very recent, very large, and very solid medical studies. We'll start with the newest. January 2023. Based on a compilation of 2 huge Harvard studies enrolling 120,000 initially healthy adults over 36 years. About half the participants died, so this is a very large sample. They looked at the death rate of those eating the standard American diet versus 4 healthy diets. Those eating the most healthy diets had a 14 to 20% lower risk for death, mostly from cancer and heart, lung, or neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. I think this is worth spending some time on. First, there was a 14% decrease in death rate for those on a plant-based diet. That's no animals or their products, what you would call healthy vegan or whole food plant-based diet. They also docked points for alcohol. The Mediterranean diet had an 18% drop in death rate. It has little or no meat, choosing poultry over red meat, no processed meat. It uses extra virgin olive oil, little or no sweets, sugar drinks, or butter, some wine with meals, and some cheese or yogurt. It emphasizes vegetables, especially dark green leafies. Broccoli is huge, purple cabbage, carrots, the darker the better. Fruits. Tops are berries like blueberries and blackberries, raspberries and cranberries. Again, the deeper colors are stars. All legumes, which include beans, peas, lentils, soybeans, and peanuts. And nuts. Tops are walnuts and pecans for health benefits. It features some fish, especially those with the highest levels of omega-3, such as sardines with 980 milligrams of omega-3, herring with 2,000 milligrams, and Atlantic mackerel with 1,200, not the larger king mackerel due to mercury contamination. Mussels pack 780 milligrams of omega-3s, more than lobster, clam, shrimp, or scallops, and they are one of the most sustainable seafoods as they require no feed or fertilizer. Back to the two winning diets, the similarities to each other and the Mediterranean far outweigh their differences. The winner stresses plant-based protein and fish rather than lean animal and dairy. It also allows moderate alcohol, as does the Mediterranean, which means 1 alcoholic equivalent daily for women, 2 for men. An equivalent is 5 ounces of wine or 12 ounces of beer or 1.5 ounces of liquor. Red wine seems to be preferred, as one study recently showed it did not increase the risk of breast cancer, unlike the others, but more studies are needed. What do all 4 healthy diets have in common? They prohibit red meat. Remember, that's any mammal: cows, pigs, lamb, deer. And they prohibit processed meat, meat that is salted or cured or smoked to preserve or flavor them. Think bacon, hot dogs, salami, but also processed white meat such as deli, turkey, and chicken, which most of us still think of as a healthy, lean alternative. They are classified as Group 1 carcinogens, along with tobacco and asbestos. Even unprocessed red meat is a Class 2A carcinogen, along with HPV, virus, and Roundup. Next, we have the largest study in the world to date on diet and health, the AARP study of 400,000 participants, and others, 131,000, 71,000, 29,000, they all show the same thing. If you take away 3% of a day's calories in meat protein and substitute it with the same calories but with plant protein, you have a decrease in death rate. How much? This is a summary of their findings. If you replace 2.5 eggs with 1/2 cup of lentils, your risk of death drops 19 to 21%. 1/2 of a chicken breast, 10 to 34%. 1/2 of a hamburger patty, 12 to 44%. In the winter, 3/4 of a servings of deli or processed meat, 34 to 50% reduction in your risk of death. Now, if I told you I could give you a pill that would lower your risk of chronic diseases like heart, cancer, and diabetes by 80%, how much would you pay for that? And yet we know through lifestyle changes you can do the same. Dean Ornish is a world-famous cardiologist who was one of the first to show you can reverse coronary artery disease with a plant-based diet. In his book, Undo It, he takes you through how you can lower your risk of chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, some cancer, kidney disease, etc. by 80% with his lifestyle program of eating well, moving more, stressing less, and loving more. Eating well means a whole food plant-based diet, only what comes straight out of the ground. That means no oils, sugars, ultra-processed foods. It's a step above vegan diets. Telomeres are end caps on our chromosomes in every cell in our body, and they reflect aging. Think of them like the caps on the ends of your shoelaces. They usually shorten as we age, about 3% over 5 years. Ornish showed you could lengthen them 10% over 5 years with lifestyle changes, suggesting diet and his lifestyle program had slowed aging. Another study showed you could reverse, stop, or slow early prostate cancer with diet and lifestyle changes. It altered gene behavior that controlled growth of cancer. It turned off cancer promoter genes and turned on cancer suppressor genes. His quote, "Genes are not destiny, dinner is destiny," end quote. Let's continue on with various other studies. A recent Harvard study showed 53% lower Alzheimer's rate for those following a Mediterranean and low-salt diet named the MIND diet. Brains looked up to 7 years younger the more the diet was adhered to, especially if you look at dark leafy greens consumption. It allowed 1 serving per week of fish, 2 servings per week of poultry. Otherwise, it was dark greens and berries, grains, beans, and nuts, the usual heroes. Olive oil and 1 glass of wine were also permitted. After a diagnosis of prostate cancer, men consuming greater than 3 servings per day of dairy products had a 76% higher risk of all-cause death and 141% higher risk of dying from prostate cancer compared to men who had less than 1 dairy product per day. Let's put to rest the myth that soy promotes breast cancer. The effects of estradiol, the primary human estrogen on breast cells, are completely opposite to those of soy phytoestrogens, which have an anti-proliferative effect on breast cells. This 2019 study of 331,000 participants showed that those who had the most soy had 10% less death from any cause. For those with 10 milligrams soy isoflavones daily, that's hard to say how much that is, as it varies depending on the food you're looking at. There is a 7% less cancer deaths of any kind and 9% less death from breast cancer. They also found a 12% drop in breast cancer deaths from each 5 grams per day increment of soy protein. 5 milligrams is about 2/3 of a cup of soy milk or a 1/4 cup of soybeans or 2 ounces of tofu. Higher intake of soy during childhood was associated with 60% less breast cancer as an adult. During adolescence, 20% less, and as an adult, 24% lower breast cancer risk. In this study, those with the highest soy intake had 25% less breast cancer recurrence. So, who thinks milk does a body good? Those of you who said yes are right if you're malnourished or an infant who can't breastfeed. This is a review published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the most prominent medical journal in the world, by Dr. Walter Willett, then head of Harvard School of Public Health. He is the world's most cited nutritionist. Their conclusions? If breast milk is not available, cow's milk can be an important nutrient component of infant formula, and milk consumption while growing up can increase height. Otherwise, milk does not build strong bones, increases the risk of prostate and uterine cancer, predisposes to asthma, eczema, and food allergies, is on par with red meat for being associated with heart disease and strokes, influences health indirectly through adverse environmental effects. Conclusion, quote, "Concerns exist about the risks of regular consumption. The bottom line is to enjoy dairy responsibly and in small quantities, if at all." Shocking. So why has milk been such an entrenched icon of healthy eating? Willett continues, quote, "Mass marketing and political influence of big dairy," end quote. Let me tell you a story about casein, the main protein in milk. In the 1960s, the premier of China was dying of cancer, so he commissioned a study of the whole country to find out who was dying of what. Turns out, poor people were dying of infection, wealthier people of chronic, more modern diseases like diabetes, heart attacks, and cancer. They concluded it was because wealthier people were eating more meat and animal products. Serendipitously, Campbell, the lead researcher from the United States, was also studying malnourished children in the Philippines, where he discovered the ironic finding that wealthy kids got more liver cancer than poor. He wondered if it was the same reason. So, back at Cornell, he gave mice an agent known to have the potential to start liver cancer. Then he gave them varying amounts of casein, the main protein in milk. After 2 years, all the mice that got 20% of calories from casein were dead, while those getting 5% were fine. He then alternated their diet every 3 weeks between 5 and 20% casein. Quote, like flipping a light switch on and off, we could control cancer promotion merely by changing levels of protein, end quote. His conclusion? Casein, and very likely all animal proteins, may be the most relevant cancer-causing substances that we consume. What is it about animal products that are unhealthy? Animal products most often come packaged with saturated fat, other than a few tropical oils such as coconut and palm oils. We don't see this with plants. Animal products are associated with higher levels of AGEs and IGF-1, compounds in our bodies that are implicated in chronic diseases. In fact, plants have been found to lower these bad actors. Plants are actually protective, with phytochemicals, flavonoids, antioxidants, carotenoids, and vitamins, etc. Let's mention TMAO, which has been described as the molecule from hell. It was discovered 13 years ago at Cleveland Clinic by Dr. Stan Hazen. It mainly comes from carnitine and red meat. When you eat red meat, the bacteria in your colon, your gut biome, converts carnitine to TMA. Then the liver changes it to TMAO. TMAO gets into artery walls, causing plaque, so think heart attacks and strokes. It also increases the stickiness of platelets, causing more clots, again, a main cause of the same. And it directly kills the cells that make up the structure of the kidney. Interestingly, vegans don't carry the bacteria that makes TMAO because they don't feed it with meat, so their TMAO levels are very low. Basically, the types of bacteria we get in our gut depend on what we feed them, our diet. Most studies to date show very high correlation of TMAO levels with heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and other illnesses. People in one study with the highest TMAO levels had 30 to 36% higher risk of death than those with the lowest levels. I haven't heard doctors around here talk about TMAO, so I interviewed Dr. Hazen to ask him what we should do. He said, not surprisingly, be a vegetarian. Meanwhile, apparently doctors are awaiting more studies before they sound any alarms. But I think I'll take Dr. Hazen's advice. Another compound, TOR, is a natural enzyme in our body that stimulates growth. A good thing when you're young, but not so much when you get old, as it promotes aging and also growth of cancer cells. It's being studied in anti-aging research. As it turns out, animal protein contains more leucine than plant protein, and leucine stimulates, you got it, TOR. So, not good. So, do the words becoming more plant-focused send shivers down your spine? Well, becoming more plant-focused does not mean this. We're talking making meals like these: spaghetti and meatballs, chili, enchiladas, lasagna, pizza, stir-fry, shepherd's pie. Especially with plant-based meat substitutes, the possibilities are endless. Speaking of which, you need a few good and easy recipes with available ingredients, or you'll get very discouraged very quickly. Here's a few suggestions. You may know America's Test Kitchen. It's on PBS. Their motto is, "We make the mistake so you don't have to." And the New York Times cooking section is also a great place to start. Although plant-based meat substitutes aren't perfect, we believe they're healthier than the animal products they replace. There's one I particularly like, however, and I want to give a shout out to. That's corn chicken patties. It's not made of corn, but from a fungus. No saturated fat, a good amount of fiber. They lower blood sugar and bad cholesterol levels a bit. They contain excellent protein, are very satiating, and they are available at most local supermarkets. And environmentally, they're a star. And I think this particular one tastes very good. Thank you to Drs. Ornish, Campbell, Greger, and Katz, world authorities on nutrition and health. They are my gurus. I'd like to refer you to their books, which are extremely informative and engaging. They're all available as audiobooks. Let's end with this quote from Dr. Kim Williams, former president of the American College of Cardiology. "I don't mind dying. I just don't want it to be my fault." Please forward this video to as many as you feel might be interested. Also, please consider viewing this eye-opening presentation titled "Eating Less Meat to Save Our Planet." Thank you, and bon appetit.